Okay, I just want you to take a deep breath. Uh, Participles took me a good 6 years to get a handle on them. And that's not full-time Greek study. I mean, that's, a class here and there. But really, honestly, just take a deep breath. This is not something that you are going to master. Just absorb as much as you can. Here's one of the primary reasons this is so incredibly difficult in English. Half of the time, when you're reading a phrase in English that's been translated from the Bible, there are sometimes five, six, seven words that are all coming from a participle. One word in Greek that's being translated into seven words in English. This can become just incredibly difficult and convoluted when you're trying to trace back what in the world the translators did to make sense of a participle. And here's why it's so difficult in English for us to understand this. Participles are technically verbal adjectives. Okay. What that means is they have some adjectival qualities, but they are primarily built on verbal roots. So they're functioning in the context to try to describe while at the same time provide action. And this is just something in English that we employ several words to do. So, for instance, we might say, after I ate, I went to the movies. We use that phrase, after I ate. Three separate words. We have kind of a temporal particle, after, right? That's temporal, just means time. It gives you a sense of when this is happening. After I, the subject of a new verb, ate, right? Finite verb, ate in the past tense, I went to the movies. In Greek, you need to use the word after, you don't need to use the word I. You just need to take the verbal root of eat, put it in the past tense, in this case the aorist tense, and then build a participle out of it. And then the audience will know, because it's aorist, and it's built in the subject's case, which is the nominative. The reader or the audience will know that the subject ate, right? And then the aorist tells them to put in the word after because they know they're in a narrative. So their brains just insert all that information. After I ate, I went to the movies. This is just the root of much difficulty for us in English. So just strap on your patience and wade through this material. I don't expect you to be anywhere close to experts. And here's why. As I've already said, participles are extremely complex, and because they're functioning as verbal adjectives, when they're in context, they're going to look a lot like adjectives, which we haven't spent a lot of time with in this class because it's very difficult to work with adjectives if you don't know the language well. You need to be able to see the Greek to make sense of the different possibilities. So we're going to try to wade our way through this. And I'm just going to show you a few things here in Greek, and hopefully you'll be able to see what I show you. Okay, so the first way that, if you remember, an adjective can function, if you remember back to our adjective lectures, is as an attributive, which means it's attributing its quality to the noun with which it is being paired. So in Greek, if you look at this first phrase that I'm highlighting here, in Greek, this says ha anthropos, ha luon. The first construction, ha anthropos, is a noun. The definite article ha is the, anthropos, person, and then we have the participle with a definite article, the one who looses, to put it very literally. And so when you have a definite article and a noun, and then a definite article and the participle, you are dealing with an attributive participle, the person who looses. All right. Another way this can be built is when the noun does not have an article, but the participle does. And this can go either with the noun in the front or the noun in the back. But then it's just a person who says if the noun's in front, and the person who says. But ultimately, what you need to know is that this participle is functioning attributively. This is not just a person or the person. It is the person who is described by saying, or described by loosing, or described by coming. So in English, we tend to say that by putting the relative pronoun who and then the present tense form of the verb. The person who looses, or the one who looses. Okay, so this is how participles. One of the ways that participles can function. They can simply add an attribute to the noun. It's not good enough for them to just find an adjective that works. They actually use a verbal form and turn it into an adjective. Okay, all right. So I give you some brief instructions here, then also as to how to translate that. Then the second way, if you remember, for participle, or I'm sorry, for adjectives to function, is substantively. Now, in Greek, what this means is there is no noun that the participle is being joined with, and what results then is you'll always have it with a definite article, because if there's no noun for it to be paired with, it needs to stand by itself, so it has definiteness. And the way this two-word phrase ends up getting translated is by supplying an antecedent that is a subject, so the one, or if the context allows it, he, she, it. If it's plural, they, and so on. So that's the antecedent. Then you supply the relative pronoun who, and then you change the participle to a finite English verb, sees. So blepo, the verb blepo means to see, and here ha blepon, the one who sees. Okay, so this is the substantive. In other words, it's an adjectival verb, but it has its own substance, so it doesn't need a noun to work with. But that means that you have to, in English, provide its substance, because we don't have a way to communicate that with one word. All right. And then we get to the place where everything just falls to the floor, because there are so many difficult to decide upon possibilities. But let's run through them, because this is absolutely the most fruitful place to work with adjectives. Whenever you're working with participles, not adjectives. Whenever you're working with participles that do not have a definite article, and I will point out to you when they do and do not for your stuff that you're working on. And for the most part, I'm going to make you work on these, because they're the most difficult to interpret. All right. Notice here, hegune, that's the noun. There's no definite article, and then we have the participle. This is going to be a predicate participle. Remember, we have predicate adjectives. She is smart. That is a predicate adjective. Likewise here, we're dealing with predicate participles. And here's why they become so difficult. There are many different ways that they can be understood. The first is temporal. When you're dealing with the temporal participle, depending on the tense of the participle, it may express time, especially when it's in a narrative. The present tense, while or as, so the present tense is giving you the idea that this action is happening contemporaneously with the main verb. So here, he said these things, and then a present, so this is an aorist verb. He said these things while he was teaching. All right, so the participle here is a present tense participle, and it's translated with these three words, while, and he is assumed was teaching. All right. So that's what a temporal participle looks like. If it were in the aorist tense, it would be he said these things after he taught. Notice there that the ing leaves, right? It's not that after he was teaching, it's after he taught. So you have to realize that that verbal form is going to morph as you decide what the possible nuances are for the particular participle. That's the easiest one. Whenever you're in narratives, these are going to happen all the time. Expressing contemporaneous or antecedent action. You can also have them in the future tense where it conveys that before. So he said these things before he ate, or something like that. But that those are all temporal because they express time. Then we get to the more logical kinds of interpretations. The first among which is causal. The key words that you're going to use here are because, for, since, or something of that nature. Here in this particular construction in John 4:6, because Jesus was tired from the journey, he sat down. Now, we look for our main verb. That's this right here. He sat down. And it corresponds to this word in black here, ekathisto. Here we have the participle, which is in the perfect tense, and it is translated with the words because Jesus was tired. So the subject of the participle is Jesus, and we know that because if you were to hover over this word, it would tell you it's a nominative singular masculine, and then if you were to hover over this participle, it would tell you it's a nominative singular masculine perfect active and perfect active participle. Okay, so it has the adjectival qualities. It's nominative, it's singular, and it's masculine, and then it has the verbal qualities. It's perfect, it's active, and the mood, quote unquote, is participle. Okay, so we could just say Jesus was tired from the journey, he sat down. But knowing that that first verbal form is in fact a participle, we need to help the audience understand what the author means. We can't just say Jesus was tired from the journey, he sat down. We can probably intuit there that the reason that Jesus sat down, the cause of him sitting down, is because he was tired from the journey. So instead of just translating it as though it were a verb, Jesus was tired from the journey, he sat down, we help the audience to understand the meaning of that participle by inserting the word because. Because Jesus was tired from the journey, he sat down. Okay? All right, the third option, condition. If a predicate participle is translated in English in a conditional clause, sorry, an itch on my shoulder, I didn't mean to distract you there, it is introduced by the keyword if. So if this, then this is the general way we express condition. So here in this example, and everything which you may ask for should probably be inserted there. You may ask for in prayer. If you believe, you will receive. So here we have our main verb, everything which you may ask in prayer. Then we have our participle, which is just one word in Greek, if you believe. Now, once again, we have a present active participle that is nominative, masculine and plural, nominative plural masculine here. And so we get this you because it's the subject of the main verb. Okay, so because the nominative of the main verb is that second person plural pronoun, you, then it also becomes the subject of the participle because the participle is in the nominative case, which is the case of the subject. I know this can get extremely confusing. So we have inserted the word if